welcome back to Crystal Clear Moments. Again, I am Crystal Blackwell, your host. I have here today John Fee. So before I dive into your resume, which, I Googled you and it was pages and pages of John Fee stuff, but I want to tell my personal story, which does link to who you are and what you do. So I met John Fees. I was hired at his company, NGI, Next Generation Insurance. And this was like 2012, 13 time. And at that time, I was leaving a big corporation, and this was my first intro into small business. And let me tell you what I learned working. I didn't directly report to John, but I was under the leadership umbrella. And what I learned from you that I've taken, and I've actually built training around this, and this has been my talk for the last 2 years, empathy.
I'm so happy.
You demonstrated empathy, and that's just who you are. And I'm saying that because that's how I watched how you treated everyone in that business. It didn't matter who they were, what they did, front desk person, someone who popped in and dropped off some mail. It didn't matter who it was. You always took time out. You smiled. You asked how people were doing. You were intentional. It really made a difference because I left, the Fortune 100, and I walked to this small business, and right away
we were very small.
Yeah, but you know what? But that was good. I felt seen. I mean, I knew you saw me, and that's a lot going from traditional corporate America, And then the second thing I learned from you, was innovation. Because you were trying all kinds of stuff. So
we failed on a lot of them,
but that's
you
okay.
You had a good attitude with us. Yeah.
But you taught that. I saw that. And I took the small business, the entrepreneurial spirit of innovation, and infused, really understood what empathy was and how it showed up just in everyday life, but how you treat people, but especially as a leader. And that helped me sort of build my business, Crystal Clear Results. So thank you for that. Thank you for giving me that.
You got a perfect name, and it's a perfect show. And I love preparing for our conversation, besides being reunited together to talk about old days. Listening to the other interviews you've done have just been so good. It's been good for my own soul. And I think Crystal Clear is right. I think you need to be clear about for your career, transitions, for your life, who you want to work with, and what those choices represent in terms of your values.
Right.
And, I'm delighted to be here.
Yeah, thank you. So I want to give your bio because I think it's fascinating. So before we go, this is what I remember about you. I remember your birthday because it's 4, 5, 6, 7, right? And I remember you saying that I will.
Funny.
Isn't that funny how the things that people remember that I remember?
My mom
birthday.
said I was special.
Yeah, that's pretty special.
In Phoenix, I've met 3 people with the same birthday.
4, 5, 6, 7.
Yeah,
I think that's cool. So you know what? So there's no excuse.
I'm not so special,
right? Yeah. There's no excuse not to get a birthday card because I know your birthday. But that was the one thing that always stuck with me was your birthday. How it was so cool. But
thank you.
Again, a visionary entrepreneur, a leader in insurance technology, technology was important, but people were too, and I think that's the part that I think, in this day and time that we can't forget the people part of innovation and technology. And that's been part of your foundational principle is not to forget that.
The best technology serves some social good. You think about a phone connecting families, you think about air flights connecting families and helping things. But the best technology has to also include some social good. It can't just be for entertainment alone, although there's value in that. I think what I've wanted to spend my life on is seeing how technology can really, create something that doesn't exist otherwise. So, my first business provided publishing software to university newspapers, created a national advertising network that before Facebook was the only place you could reach college students and alumni. It ended up being an interesting business, but for us, it didn't exist. And that helped a lot of brands, but it also helped a lot of journalists at the time. Today with GradGuard, but for GradGuard, there's no way for families to protect themselves from the high cost of college and the losses that might happen. Again, without technology, there would be no affordable way for families to do it.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
the affordability is the key piece. There's, but we can come back to GradGuard. But the bio is interesting that you'd say that, because technology is a piece of what I do, but it's really for some social good.
It is, yeah. And I like that you clarify that, because sometimes people, when they think technology, think it's not for good.
Yeah.
And it's how you use it.
Well, it can
you
be
know?
soulless.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
you can
we
lose your
see
soul
that.
in these. We see it with our kids.
Yeah.
We see it in our families, these devices. You're at a dinner table and the devices are capturing more attention than the person across from you. I think they've got it. Technology, especially in this AI world, needs to be a tool for us.
So how, let's just take here for a little bit. So how have you been able to maximize AI in your innovative space of your business? Have you been able to tap into that?
So AI to me is the new shiny object, but sometimes it's just really about doing things smart. So machine learning is the way I like to look at it, and large language models. If you take kind of this hierarchy of needs, we can think of machine learning, just as one example. Universities want to assure that students know the limits of liability of the institution. This sounds really boring. What they want to do is make certain that they can replace their stolen backpack or their the damage that they might cause in a residence hall. And so what they're doing is they're requiring students to show proof that they can pay for those damages. And so they require them to have renter's insurance, as an example. But before us, they would not require it, because there was no way. You'd have to have a human look at all of those insurance certificates. And there's about 300 different insurance certificates that we have now mastered through a machine, a computer, call it AI, make it sexy, whatever we want. But it's really machine learning. It's teaching a machine to look at that document and know what it is. And that replaces, well, it actually doesn't replace, it enables us to implement a requirement that's in the best interest of students, best interest of schools. And we're doing that. We're doing it at Creighton. We're doing it at UC Davis and Howard University and a bunch of great places. But for that technology, it wouldn't be possible, because you would have to have a bunch of humans doing it, and it wouldn't ever happen, because it's not a good use of human time.
Right. So let's tell everyone. Let's tell our our friends out there who are listening. What is GradGuard? Because I remember when I was working for you, it was a baby.
It was a baby.
And it was your baby. That was your baby.
It's a passion project. So.
And it was very clear that it was meaningful and it made sense. So let's tell the podcast listeners, like in everyday language, if I was a mom and I had a student going to college, next year, and you were talking to me about GradGuard, like what is that?
Taking a step back, Bill Sunnison and I, who started GradGuard, I mean, we've now run several different businesses, but the real challenge in America is we know education is transformative, right? We know it's transformative for families, for individuals, for communities, societies, every part of it.
I agree.
Unfortunately, the U.S. has got a lot of this wrong, in my view. Our education system is completely funded unfairly because it's funded by zip code. And in my belief, your zip code should not determine your outcomes in your life, but yet they really do. And secondly, they determine whether or not you even go to college, and they also determine, when you do go to college, whether or not you have access to high-quality education. And the challenges in America is that we've required families and taxpayers to pay all of that risk. So it's about $400 billion a year that is spent by families. And what most families are unaware of is they're not going to give you your money back. Schools will not give you your money back if something bad happens. And that's okay, but families don't know it.
Right.
And before GradGuard, nobody had created a way to give students a do-over when they get a concussion, when they get COVID, when they become depressed, when their parent dies, when their parent loses a job, and they can't continue. And it wasn't a big deal when I was in school, when I paid $450 to go to ASU.
Right.
But today, almost every school is expensive. And so what's interesting is when we started GradGuard is tuition insurance was something that was available to students that went to elite schools. So if you went to Harvard, for the last 40 years, you could buy it. But if you went to Arizona State, where I went, you couldn't buy it. And so part of what our mission was is to make it universally accessible. So it's something that maybe private elite schools could do. We wanted it available everywhere in the country. Right. So today, We have over 600 universities that rely on us, and we've insured, since you started working with us, Crystal, 1.8 million families.
That's amazing.
Um,
I remember celebrating when we got to college, and we had
Yeah,
on the
we
wall all the different schools, you know. and
NYU was an early one, and now
Yeah.
we have all the University of California's. We work with the finest schools in the country.
Yes, definitely.
And the real issue, though, is our mission is to make certain that students get a do-over. And when something bad happens, this is not dropout insurance, but when there is something that disrupts your education, your backpack getting stolen, which is how our renters program works, or you becoming ill, or having a physical or mental health illness, or some other surprise, like your parent dying, that you'll get your money back and you get a do-over. And so the thing I'm most proud about is we paid 98% of our claims. So there's no gotchas. I think right now in the world of insurance, there's such concern. God bless this CEO who died from an assassination. That's completely unreasonable and unfair. At the same time, you see the discontent around big corporations, especially big companies that are canceling your insurance policies in California and other places. And there's a natural consequence of basically interference in the markets in those states, in my view. But the point is, we need insurance companies that stand up for what they pay and how they stand behind their claims.
Right.
And I feel the best part of our business is we've helped a lot of people.
Good.
Yeah.
And I know that that's important to you. Education is important to you. You know, like you said, you went to ASU. Kobe, my youngest son, he's Sun Devils, loved the experience, and he was part of that college group that was in COVID.
Yeah.
So he experienced
It's a
a little
difficult time.
different, he experienced it a little differently, but, he still loved his experience. Then you went on to Harvard. So it's very clear that, education is important to you. What was your crystal clear moment when you realized you were on to
That's
something?
your money question. So on GradGuard, I think COVID really demonstrated to people that schools don't give your money back. Schools are a lot like cruise companies. Everybody pays a different price, and they're not going to give you your money back.
Right.
And as much as I love Harvard, they don't give your money back if something bad happens. And today, schools are really, Harvard could choose to do that, but many schools just don't have the liquidity to do it. They've got their own problems financially because enrollments have declined in some cases. I think my crystal clear moment, though, was you might remember, I would take escalations, but I'd also take phone calls.
Yeah, you did.
And I still do that today because I want to understand what's happening. And I think the mental health of our young people is something that what we need to do is find ways to reduce stress. I'm all about building resilience in young people. I've got 5 children. I want them to know what it's like to sweat and know what it's like to work hard. I absolutely want resilience. At the same time, I don't want that extra stress that they need to put on themselves because they're not perfect due to Instagram or TikTok or something like that.
Right, yeah.
In this era post-COVID has created a mental health crisis in this country. Now, I stopped using the word crisis because I believe now, as employers and as parents, we need to just get used to this is the new status quo. It's not a crisis.
It's a current state of being.
It's a current state of being, and there is a tendency, mostly fed by TikTok and others, to use clinical terms to describe what's happening to me as a young person.
Right.
So I am, instead of stressed about exams, I've got a lot of anxiety. I may be depressed because I just got my grades and I got a C instead of my B's or my A's. And I think that we need to be careful to not use clinical language about kind of normal status of your own life. There is times where I'm mildly depressed. There are times, but that's very different than being really depressed. But empathy, going back to your comment, my family's been touched by suicide. Almost all of my children, all of my children have known classmates that have died from suicide. And what I would tell people is that today in American colleges and universities, 24,000 students attempted suicide this last year. 1,100 were successful. And this is, and your audience is filled with a lot of God-loving people, and I have faith. There is evil in the world, and we need to help our children understand that there is light and there is goodness, and these crystal clear moments are about that light and goodness, that you are loved, and that you are more than your job. You're more than your one thing.
Absolutely. Yes.
And so I think that we're called as business leaders and community leaders to show that light to people, and to give them hope, and to recognize that special quality, whatever that might be in them, so that they know that they need to live tomorrow, and they need to get through and can get through those moments.
Right.
I try to do that with my own children, but the world is screaming at them that they're not relevant, that they're not successful because they're not doing this or not looking like
a
this
certain way. Right.
I feel so horrible for the way the world screams at us and our children.
Yeah.
And today, it's screaming right through their phone, and that is something that we've just got to find a way. I just went skiing with my daughter. Had a great time. And I love doing outdoor things with my kids. You go hiking, you can't be on your phone. You go skiing, get on a lift, there's no cell coverage. Best moments in life.
But you've always had the best, I remember vacations with your family. That was really important.
Vacations, though, it's experiences. It's like, I don't think we spend a lot of money on it, but we going hiking doesn't cost a lot.
Yeah, it doesn't. It's time together.
It's time together. You get off your devices, and that includes me because I'm on my device too much. But.
So you said something that is, I just want to double back on, is the state of our young people in terms of, stress, and then the other side of it, them not having resilient to deal with a lot of it. So I'm doing this. I'm preparing to do this training for this organization, and they wanted on, giving their staff train on stress management and building resilience. So of course now the world is the office the world. So everybody's experiencing it, and it shows up in the workplace, right?
Yep.
You know that as being a leader.
Absolutely.
So I'm going through the data and I'm doing research. And to your point, I got some data from SHRM 2024 that stated that the Gen Zs that are working are at 70% stressed. Yeah. So these are our recent college grads. These are our future. These are the folks that are taking that first level job, maybe first level leadership role, and they're at a 70%. Then it goes to the next group of leaders, the millennials, 60%. Yeah. Then after that, it's between 50 and 60. So across the board, we're all feeling this, like you said, the new normal, this tightness. It's like feels like the world's got a little tight.
Right. I think that it's a tightness. That's a really good word for it, a good expression. I think that employers have a duty to start to think about health and wellness differently.
Absolutely.
And, I was listening to your husband's conversation. He's an expert on health insurance and health benefits. And we, as employers, we spend a third of our time with our employers and with our colleagues. And if we can have healthy food and healthy habits, and also then celebrate those things, right? So we're trying to do that, but it's I think it really takes a cultural shift, and it takes an outside, a bit of an agitator. You can come in and say, we can think differently about this, right?
And we
stress is always going to be part of a work environment, but it is. And we're living in an always-on time where Slack is getting to us, texting. It used to be just emails.
Yeah.
I tell people, it's like,
I remember when you launched Slack in your office.
I was
and everyone was freaking out, like, how do you turn this thing off?
Watch out.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, and as an employer, though, I try not to send emails on the weekend unless they matter.
Yeah.
I try to set them so they go out Monday morning.
Right.
So it doesn't ruin everybody's weekends. I think that, we work hard as a country, and we need to work smarter now. And finding those opportunities to give people space for their private time with their family really matters.
And I 100% agree with you. And I think that we're always hearing what Gen Zs are doing, and what millennials. We're always, but let me tell you what I love about the Generation Z. That's now young adult. They're the young adults that are entering late teens, early 20s. Their values a little different. Like, they value family time. They are looking for purpose. They work for people that they feel like care about them. And they work hard if they connect with you. If they feel that they can trust you, they will deliver. And if they're not happy, they'll leave.
Yeah.
And they'll look for what matters because they're not motivated by the money.
Yeah.
You know.
So in the insurance world right now, one of the big issues, I just came from a conference where they were talking about, they're expecting over 400,000 people to leave the insurance industry because of retirements. There's not enough, to replace them. So it's a great industry for folks. But I think that employers have got to be sensitive to what that next generation wants. One of the opportunities for us as leaders, I think, is to think your podcast library is about, so many people touch on this idea of transitions. And I look at my own children and my own businesses. These transitions are the hard ones.
They are.
High school to college, right? We could go back all the way to kindergarten, but high school to college, your employees that get married, the employees, I just had three
have
of
a
our
baby.
employees, 3 of our employees have had kids this year. And we're a small business, but at the end of the day, helping people through those transitions, demonstrating empathy. I always tell people my own, our own story about having our first children and just what a huge adjustment it was. And
your twins. I remember when you were talking about when you guys had your twins.
But what I try to say though is, like, people that have worked with me now for a long time, they've seen me through deaths. They've seen through me through births. They've seen me through these challenges, and you've watched me through some of them. But when your father dies, these moments you share with your colleagues, and you may only have one best friend at work, or sometimes you may not have anybody. But I think helping people and recognizing it as part of kind of our duties, maybe too strong a word, but we should share the journey, including these difficult transitions, and help people identify this is a moment that will pass.
Yes, right.
Lean into it.
Lean into it. And also, I think it's how we deal with it.
Yeah.
Because stress is going to happen.
Yep.
And stress is on a grid. It could be a 10 stressor.
Totally.
It could be a 1 stressor. I think it's important to figure out where it is. Like, where is this stress at for me? And because you're going to have it. Losing a parent, that's a 10 stressor.
Totally
and then and you could be there for a while.
Especially caring for them, like
caretaker. You could be there for months.
Yeah.
And then it's how we deal with it. And I think just learning. Reintroducing those tools back. No one wants the tough guy anymore. No one wants you to buck up and deal with it. No one's saying, let it go, let it flow. That's not working.
And by the way, even as a parent, you can confess that it's hard. And I try to,
Yes, it is.
I think one of the mistakes I've made in my life periodically, and I think we should take a step back, because sometimes it's okay to say it's hard. It's okay to say, it's not easy right now, and I've lived in a little bubble sometimes where people have a lot of privilege and they all pretend everything's fine until it's not. And I think the reality is owning some suffering along the way is okay, and calling it and identifying what it is. Hey, anybody that lives with teenagers, you get a gold star. And never did I think that really was I deserved that, but teenagers are pushing back on everything.
Yeah, they are.
And this culture, like, literally, I'll joke with my kids sometimes and say, did you just see that on TikTok? Because nobody talks to my wife that way.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah.
And my
That's
kids
right.
are great, but they're just trying these balloons.
Trying stuff. Because they can. They
Yeah,
think they can.
I look at teenagers and sometimes employees this way, but you can be like a snow globe, and sometimes that snow globe just needs to just calm down a little bit and be listened to. If you talk and react to it, it's not going to be the empathy that you want.
Right.
So.
And I know I find that too. Like my kids are young adults. It's still the same. I still have the same connected. I mean, I was talking to my oldest son, Chase, today,
I remember
just
Chase,
talking about his career, and he was giving me an update on stuff, and he talked about some things, and, I felt my heart like, are you going to be okay, and are you doing this? And I'm always talking about, are you taking time out for yourself, or how's your stress levels, and are you working out? Like, what are you doing when so I'm always talking about that, because we were never taught that.
Yeah.
I mean,
but your example, you and your husband's example to Chase and your other children is the example, right? They learn more from what we do than what we say, and you've lived that passion. I think finding that passion for this generation seems to be more important than it was for me.
Oh, yeah.
When I was younger, I had nothing. Anything I wanted, I needed to go earn money for. So it was a little bit challenged. This generation does have a lot of affluence, But sadly, they also see what they don't have because of Instagram and TikTok and the rest of the
They
social
take it
media.
personal.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
a very
they
different
take
thing.
it- it's very different.
None of my class of 1985 from Tempe High could really easily follow me.
Right.
I mean, I went to ASU just down the street, but it wasn't easy to stay in touch. Now everybody stays in touch.
And our stay in touch was reunions,
Yep.
you
Yeah.
know, and then after that you didn't see each other, then had another reunion, or maybe you stayed in touch with a few people. But I mean, I do think that right now it's a good time to introduce that and call that out, because again, everything is so tight, and so much is being taken away. You know.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely
you know.
right. I do think, in that same kind of vein, your reputation is built by 1,000 small things. And so you think about the person you went to high school with or college with for 4 years, or you've gone to church with for a decade, and you know them. You know their soul a little bit better than most. And I think giving people the benefit of the doubt, there but for the grace of God go I, is the essential piece. You don't know what people are suffering. My grandfather was one of the greatest men I knew. He was barely completed high school, Irish guy from New York, came to Arizona in the 30s, and he was just kind. It's really what I've always heard. He would find something nice to say about somebody working at the Safeway counter and the CVS counter, and he just had a way about him that I've always tried to find. I'd say, Grandad, why did you just say that nice thing about the woman's nails? So you don't know what she's going through. So I wanted to find out something I could say nice to her. And he was sincere about it. He didn't just find something.
My dad was like that.
We can do the same things. And you don't know when that might pick somebody up in a difficult day, a difficult time. But I think your reputation, as it ties together, your reputation serving clients, your reputation as a fantastic manager, the people that work for you all thrived, right? You can judge a manager by the success of their people. I really feel like we're at a time where reputations are built by the things we know to be real. So we are living in a time, one of the things I love about your podcast is it's real. We're living in a time that some people are calling a reality collapse. This reality collapse is people are not entitled to their own facts. Whether or not ASU lost to Texas is a knowable thing. I don't believe they should have lost to Texas, but it's a knowable thing. We know what the weather is. We know whether it rained yesterday in Phoenix or not. But if you believe the media really is collapsing around us because people, Mark Twain used to say a lie travels faster than truth. And that is the world we live in right now, politically, culturally, and I think that as leaders, the crystal clear moment for me is speaking truth and finding that courage to speak the truth.
That's the courage.
Sometimes people are demonized, and yet, I know that person to be a good person. I've stood up for people that have been accused of things that I did not think was possible for them. And I said, I know that person. I'm not going to comment about whether or not that judgment's right or whether or not that crime was committed or any number of things. I know that person to be a good person. Sometimes speaking that is really vital.
And oh my God, you're just saying some great things. I just want to popcorn on everything. But that one thing about having the courage to speak the truth, and I feel like that's been sapped out. Like people are becoming more coward. And
I see it everywhere.
And it's groupthink, group behavior. Like people are afraid to even express their own thoughts. There used to be a time where you could raise your hand and have your own thought, and you were encouraged. You were encouraged to be an individual thinker. Now it's groupthink.
I think our political culture's changed it. One of the things I saw what happened with COVID was my friends that were mostly ESPN fan-loving people like me, when I'd come home and watch ESPN, ESPN went off the air, basically. The Major League Baseball was canceled. NBA was canceled. Everything was canceled. And so a lot of my friends that were more keenly cheering for their team moved to CNN or MSNBC or
became
Fox.
their sport.
And this politics became a sport, and it became their identity and their team instead of that.
That's good
I think we
insight.
disrupted a lot of this is weird. This is kind of my theory. But when I think about the people with courage in Arizona right now, and Arizona, you've got a national audience, but Arizona's peculiar.
I agree.
It is.
We are.
People are watching us.
They really are.
And
we are peculiar in a good way.
Yeah, and many of the right innovative ways, and we have so many good things happening. I was actually asked to speak at Harvard Business School at my reunion about what's happening in Arizona.
Yeah, well, congratulations to you.
But it was, why are you still struggling to count your election ballots? Why are you still arguing about election results that are knowable things? And I did say that this reality collapse is factored in that Arizona has 7.1 million students or citizens. There's only 135,000 that actually pay for the newspaper. Now, we could say that's because people don't care about what the newspaper is writing, because there's nothing to read in it.
Right.
But just 5 years ago, they had 500,000. Right? And so you can criticize the paper, the Arizona Republic, or you can say maybe something else is happening in society where we just don't fully understand it. So what do you believe? Well, maybe your pastor, maybe when you're going to your principal at a school. Maybe it's these other local voices, the people that we know are who are our neighbors. So I think our voices as neighbors, our voices as community members, speak your truth. I think it really matters. But also hesitate if you hear something that is suspicious, because this fake news, this manufactured news with AI is surrounding us.
It's deadly. It's crippling us. And I think what else I think is unique about Arizona that I'm finding, and again, I didn't survey all the states. It feels this way, that we actually kind of get politics at the state level and even in our own cities. We understand the structure that, I live in Chandler, so, I need to know my council and what's important to them, and what's not, I need to let them know, if I'm voting for you, this is what's important to me, and attend those meetings and get to know your mayor and how all that trickles up, your senators, know your state reps, know the governor.
From a civil rights issue, like in Arizona, we've actually been the front line of a lot of civil rights issues for a long time. Now, we haven't always been on the right side. Right? So when I was a student, in Martin Luther King holiday, we were the only state in the country to vote against it and then vote for it, right? And
that's so Arizona,
it's so Arizona, right? And but we eventually did the right thing. And but I also think about segregation of schools and how we funded schools and this. This has not been an easy place to be somebody that's not in the majority. And I'm sensitive to that in terms of my own privilege. But at the same time, I believe it's not just in Arizona. It's never been just about race and culture. We've segregated communities by religion. In the city of Tempe, you couldn't buy property if you're Catholic or Mormon or a variety of things, right?
Religion and social
We're
economics.
pretty good at discriminating against a lot of people, against a lot of different things. But we've also been pretty good at remedying it. And I'm optimistic. That's the thing I would say about your show is the optimism of your guests. You're just finding all these little threads in a time that requires leadership and courage. You're finding these people to give some voice to some optimism for kind of the light that is in the world and in our communities.
So how would you encourage young leaders? And I'm talking, these are our, late 20s, really early 30s or 40s. That's usually when you start to get that mid-level introduction, that's a tough level of leadership. That mid-range tends to be the prickly of leadership.
It is.
Because of just the way you're situationed. How would you encourage them to lead during these times? Because, some of them aren't sleeping at night.
So one thing is to volunteer. So in the workplace, there's a great article I probably gave to you years ago. It's a book. It's a Harvard Business School review article that's called "How to Manage Your Boss." And you'd say, how do you manage your boss? I think everybody could benefit from that, because leaders and managers, they need some people that will help them. And if you're managing them, they don't have to manage you. So I think the paradigm needs to shift. So 30-somethings at work, shift your paradigm to how do you manage your boss? How do you help them? And then how do you make certain you're satisfying them and exceeding their expectations? So it's a flip of a paradigm instead of you thinking of them being oppressive or managing you. But I think you take that same thing outside of the workplace and you say the same thing to yourself about how do I create the family I want? Right? The family, most families have disappointments in them. But how do you take the elements that you want to bring, the joy, the humor, the games, whatever it is that can build some unity so we don't end up in a fight over some disagreement about politics or anything else. I think that can be you. That can be that positive person. And in our communities right now, 30-somethings are missing. You're absolutely right. From parish activities to church activities
they're
to
like
leadership.
vanished.
They're vanished.
Like, it's like, where are you?
Yeah.
I agree.
And
I agree,
so it is so easy to volunteer. Call me. I can find 5 organizations for you. In Phoenix, there's a number of organizations, but my favorite is Valley Leadership. Valley Leadership has a leadership development program that exposes you to people and organizations across the valley that need leaders. But almost every city, Chandler, Tempe, Phoenix, they all have leadership development programs that are basically inviting you to learn more about the city. And the city and Valley Leadership is kind of the premier one. And we've sponsored our employees to go through those programs. You don't have to be sponsored. You can do it yourself. But I really lean in. Just raise your hand. One of the, if you don't like politics, remember that the only club you can't get excommunicated from really is the Republican and Democratic Party.
It's true.
Right? You can join those and there's no barrier to entry.
There's no cost.
You just show up and you just show up.
Right.
Every other club I know, you can be asked to leave. Right? Not those. Those become.
I don't know. I feel like that may change too.
Well, the Republicans censored me, but I've been registered. I've been registered and independent forever, but not forever, for at least 25 years. But the reality is, I think that volunteering, showing up, there is a role for you. And if you don't feel invited, don't worry. I can invite you to lots of things that will get you involved. And the last thing I would say is taking the opportunity to help young people is the most important thing. And and any day you're depressed, well, you know, depressed is too strong a word, but you know, my brother had muscular dystrophy, and he was in a wheelchair all of my life. He died at 25, and what I like to say is you might remember this. I have a sign. It says, it's a neon sign in my office. It says "No whining." It was the expression that my mom used, because if you could walk, you had nothing to whine about. And I say that it's really important, but there are people in this community all on every block that needs us. And if we could give a little bit of kindness, a little bit of light to them, but sometimes that's not money, it's just time. And you can go volunteer at the Andre House and St. Vincent de Paul, and a lot of community organizations in this town that need it.
I remember once as a group we did St. Vincent de Paul.
Yeah, we did.
As an outing, we did that.
I love that organization. But there's lots of really important things. The last thing I would say is it's really, really important to not let your work define you alone. You have such a robust identity, right? Now you've got a podcast, you've got a consulting career, you've built a great career in multiple businesses. And I think that your multiple identities, you have the ability to be a leader in a variety of places. But there are times where, you know what, sometimes the world just needs a good follower, and you're that too. And that I'm happy to be a follower, and I'm happy to lean in and support somebody that needs help. And so your voice matters here, Crystal, in I think a way that I'm happy it's getting recognized.
Thank you. So, I appreciate that, John. I really do. It's again, you know, I look back at my career, and I like to give flowers to people who, you know, really poured into me and made an impact. Because I don't think everywhere you go is there's a reason. You know, there's always a reason. And it's always goodness. And that was what I learned from you. And
you're very patient with us. You're very patient with us, because it was, you know, I joke we're an overnight success. It just took 15 years.
But I learned so much, because what I learned, I think that was the first, you know, a lot of firsts there. You know, I got to see what, like I said, in entrepreneurism, innovation, and you know, you were doing things now. And even, you know, even my kids will say, "Mom, you guys are doing that." You know, Next Gen, you know, having, you know, social time with the employees, and they can take breaks, and you have the ping pong tables. I mean, that was way before that was not happening, and I would tell people what's going on in the office, and they would like not believe me until they would come visit. I mean, you were doing some cultural engagement activities and really tapping into people and making them feel seen. Now it's, organizations are struggling for that. They're really going to miss the mark if they decide not to be inclusive and diverse and be equitable, because the generation that's below us, young people, that's a value.
Yeah.
That's what they know, and if they don't feel seen, and it's beyond race, it's beyond it's thoughts, ideas. I mean, we can go on and on about what that covers, but if they don't see that my friend is not accepted, they take that personal.
Yeah.
Then they feel like that you're not going to accept me, and they'll move on.
Yeah, let me just say something that's a little controversial, because I think you're absolutely right. I think this generation, I look at it with my own kids. My wife's Mexican-American. We identify in a lot of different ways in our household, culturally. I think the major theme that I try to convey to my own kids is all of their grandparents were very, very poor. They were very poor. There were times they didn't know where they were going to eat. And that's just one generation away. And it didn't matter what their skin color was, they were poor. They were poor among us always, and we can do more for them. I think one of the things that I worry about right now is the hostility around words, like DEI. And I think I've seen it in the business world. I just came from a conference where it was almost like kryptonite when people said it. And I think that's really unfortunate, and I think that we have to find a way to not back down or compromise on our values. What DEI represented were values. And they had that language. Very few companies, other than Costco and a few business leaders, are doing a very good job of articulating what it was meant to do. And what it was meant to do is be pluralistic, to invite and include. Right?
Not exclude.
Yeah, and not exclude. Invite and include. And forgetting who you're missing around the table is a really big blind spot for our society. What I see having happened in the more recent times, especially these rollbacks federally, have been an attempt to punish and be hostile towards these values and really focus on the outcomes. And I don't think that the people that I respect in this movement are really around this inclusiveness, around pluralism, not around outcomes. And so it's bigger topic than today, but I think that don't let words be kryptonite in your life.
I agree with you on that.
That's my message to young people. At the same time, it is it's up to us to define what those values look like in real behaviors and real conduct. And my experience with it is standards are always the same. It doesn't really matter what standards are. When you're a great linebacker, a great quarterback, you can perform the job that needs to be done. Those standards never change. The question is, are we reaching into the community enough to make certain we've got all the best talent that can perform to that standard?
Absolutely. And I think that's always been the intention, but people like to redefine things to make it easy, or redefine things that can shift a mindset. And if you're not aware of
that's happening,
that it's happening, you look up and you could be part of it, but there's a level of awareness that I'm not saying be completely throw yourself in, but you can't disengage.
Right.
So you got to find your sweet spot, right? You got to find your level of engagement, but still your healthy boundaries of knowing how to step away and live your life and do what's best for you and manage you and your overall well-being, because it could easily suck you in. And we all know
I think
people like that.
We can all go to a dark place about how difficult some of these things are. I think the hostility towards people that are different than us I've never seen hostility
at this level.
At this level, and so
is it scary? Does it scare you? How does it make you feel? Because when you said it, I saw a different face.
I have real concern for people I love, people that I care for, that they wake up scared. My wife and I are real involved with Keno Border Initiative, which is helping displaced people. Helping displaced people means when you are an undocumented person, you're returned to the border that's closest to you. And if I've done direct service, I've fed people, I contribute to this. And it is a Jesuit mission in Nogales that basically when somebody's deported, they're sent with a government check that is uncashable in Mexico. You don't have a cell phone. You don't have anything that you might have had when you were picked up in the streets of Phoenix or Las Vegas or something else. You're sent there, and if you might be a woman, a young woman, or a family man, or whatever it might be, they are still humans, and they need and deserve care and security, but we're not treating them with that type of respect. Now, I believe a lot of church organizations, a lot of other people can help these folks, but we need to treat them with humanity. Right now, we're hostile towards them in ways that's very politically...
And nasty.
We've seen this in history. It's very politically expedient to blame people, but, and I'm not going to apologize for the Biden administration because they made their own mistakes, that we do have to be a nation of borders without getting into politics too much. But let's just take the humanness. Let's just I'm not going to, I'm not running for anything. I'm not running for anything. I don't want to, but I do believe direct service. Go down to Keno Border Initiative, volunteer, see what these people's stories are. Their children are living here. Their children may have served in the military. These are real human stories I've heard. And there's absolutely an obligation for them to become documented and to follow the laws. I'm not saying that there isn't, but let's recognize this human journey that they're on and embrace it and show love to people. That's what I think we're called to do: show love to our neighbors, show love to our communities. The world will be better for it without getting into a dark place. I can get in a dark place, but
well, I think we all can. I mean, right now I think we all can. So we have to be, intentional about making when we find ourselves there. I mean, I found myself there earlier today watching the news and found myself going there, and I had to, pull myself out and then do some self-talk and just kind of get clear on it. So I think it's just being able to do it, but it is, the climate, it forces us to, and some people who don't know how to, manage that are easily, put in. So, I mean, I know my personal crystal clear moment is to try as much to bring light.
Yeah, you do.
In a space.
You bring an enthusiasm. I mean, the show does it. I think that the more we can get folks to understand that, these crystal clear moments are great. A great opportunity for me to clear my thinking on these moments. Okay. I would say one of the more powerful things my wife has shared with our family is she's a clinical psychologist, but she is now a certified storyteller. And South Mountain Community College is this great program I've mentioned to you.
Yeah.
But really, there's two levels of storytelling. One is the story of our own journey, career-wise, and our own personal story, and owning that, and all that's unique about it, and authentic, and being able to articulate that deserves attention. It might be through your journal, it might be through therapy, but attending to that narrative.
That's healing. It's healing. That's necessary to know thyself.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And we don't think of it as a story, but it's a story we tell ourselves. It's a narrative we tell others. And I think that it's healing to understand that. So I'm a really big, my wife has really helped our family articulate that. She's done it in a way that's unpacked her heritage and her Nana's recipes and a whole set of cultural things that we did not fully appreciate or understand the depth of without it. So knowing your story, being able to articulate it, is that tool for empathy. I think that we need that to say, I've been a parent of teenagers. I know what that's like. I know I've been laid off from work and I've been through this situation. I've been through this transition. Those narratives and how we tell our stories is a vital part of the human journey we're on. And I think you're showcasing my story and other people's. It's going to be a rich tapestry at some point.
Thank you. So thank you so much for being my guest. It was so great seeing you.
Absolutely.
We have to just see each other. Yeah, more of this. I love to go out to lunch or whatever and really catch up because I mean you've always been just. When I look at my personal journey, you're one of the good ones.
Oh, thank you.
You really were kind to me, and I've learned so much. And Like I said, I've been wanting to tell you this for
Oh,
years.
thank you.
These things that that I did not forget, and
I'll be listening. So
Yes.
keep producing.
All right.
And,
boy.
let the world know the good work you're doing. I think you'd be a credit and an asset to every organization.
Thank you.
So,
Appreciate
absolutely.
that.
Yeah.
So I like to ask my guests this one question before we wrap up, and we're now in the early part of 2025.
Yeah.
Do you have a word for this year? Thought about what's a word? So I'll share my word.
Yeah. Tell me your word.
Mine is resilience.
Yeah, it's a good
I
one.
just want to bounce back
Yep.
on all this stuff. I want to have a good
I
bounce back.
love resilience. My word's optimism. I try to
Mm-hmm.
use it every day. I'm very optimistic about things. I think we can look at the negative of AI, and there are some negative consequences that are coming.
Mm-hmm.
We can look at the negatives on every issue that's the hostility in our political climate, the unfairness of the economy, and a variety of things. But I'm an optimist. I see.
Yeah, you are.
I see so many positive things that can help us deal with the biggest problems in our world. The biggest problems in our lifetime: affordable energy, clean drinking water, affordable food, our own health. These are things we can change dramatically. I think for the positive. And so, big problems are big opportunities for people and for all of us in our generation. And I think we're called to do that. I think that every generation has had difficulties. But I'm very, very optimistic. I see so many people pulling on the rope the same way that, we're a little discouraged because the other side sometimes
Kinda
gets
pulls,
pulls
yeah.
back, and it's pretty hard. You
Yeah.
can't even believe the
Yeah.
direction they're pulling.
Oh, that's the
I mean,
truth.
it is.
Like, really?
But,
You're doing that?
lean into that rope.
Yeah.
Don't
Yeah.
just watch. Lean into that
Yeah.
rope, pull, and
Good.
there's optimism in that, and there's strength in that. And we all need strength for the journey. We just do.
Good,
So,
thank you.
yeah.
So I know you're not running for anything, but you
No.
got my vote.
Oh, yeah, I'm not.
You're like, no way.
Melissa and I early on. I love people that will put themselves in the arena. I respect them.
I do too.
Stephen Ricker is one of my favorite people in Phoenix. He has more courage. He was people, expressed a lot of anti-Semitism towards him, and
I remember you hosting a
Yeah,
few.
I
And
did. I've hosted events
you
for
hosted
him.
a few events for him.
I will host
office,
events for people I know to be
Yeah.
good and honest
Yeah.
people. But I think my role is help build organizations that people can thrive in, and to do things that don't exist, like GradGuard and other types of businesses. So it's so nice to be with you,
I
Crystal.
know. Well,
Yeah,
you
thank
are a gem to the world. I tell you, I appreciate you, and I look forward to the future. And sounds like to me, I got to get Melissa on.
We'll get Melissa on. She'll be
I
great.
tell you, I know, all the stuff, and she was always just so active. I remember being in the community, just doing so much work.
Yeah, Melissa's
just not a stay-at-home person. She was busy and.
Melissa's an inspiration. 5 kids,
Yeah.
clinical psychologist. But her storytelling is this magic piece right now that I think is doing good stuff.
Good,
So,
good.
yeah.
I'm going to have to knock on her door and get
Yeah, we'll
her here.
we'll get her on.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. And thank you all podcast listeners for listening to me. Remember to download my episodes and like it because now I'm tracking a 5.0 rate, and that's what I want to keep going. I want to thank you guys so much for listening and for leaning in. This is, hard work, and I appreciate it. And thank you for just trusting me and giving me your time.
That's great.
Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Yeah.